I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we have a phrase here, riffing off Game of Thrones. Tax day is coming. But don't you worry, listener, because today we're going to dive into all the good, bad, and ugly when it comes to software programs with a man from the team that did the research so you don't have to, from the college investor, Eric Rosenberg.
And I'm super happy he's here with us, getting the band back together. Eric Rosenberg from the College Investors here. How are you, man?
I am doing great. I'm happy to be here. It's a beautiful California day. Having grown up in Colorado, it's really cold this time of year, and I'm in a t-shirt. It's a nice, beautiful, sunny day.
California, the land ain't cheap, right?
Yeah, it's the sunshine tax.
Well, speaking of tax, that's the bummer about why we're talking to you. Is this tax time, Eric? We're going to talk over the next several minutes about all the different types of filers. We're going to talk about people that should be doing free filing. We're going to talk about for entrepreneurs, people that have crypto, investors, all different types of people. But let's start off with just the overall winners. You took a deep dive like you guys at the College Investor do every year. Let's start here. Who should use software versus who should use a pro? Or are those two continuing to kind of meld together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the tax software, most of them now have upgrades where you can work with a pro through the software, but you'll, of course, pay extra for that. In general, I'd say most people, if you're comfortable using a computer, if you can do online banking and email and the basics, you could probably navigate most modern web software. If you are someone who doesn't like computers, and I'm guessing if you're listening to a podcast, you're probably more comfortable with computers.
Probably be okay. Yeah.
Maybe if you're talking to your grandparents and or your parents, I don't know how old you are, and if they're the kind of person who like can't deal with logins and just has trouble navigating the web in general, probably still better to go with the in-person accountant. When we get into people with more complex taxes, as we'll dive into some of these tax apps, most of them can handle even the most complex things. Like, I'm a business owner. I could use just about any tax software on this list. I can deal with mortgages, investments, including crypto, child tax credits, like just about anything that the average person would have. All the tax software can handle. But if you have enough money and you just don't really want to do it, it's your money. You might find it just so frustrating to sit down and type your stuff in for an hour or two that it's worth paying someone. And that's okay. Personal finance is personal. It's up to you how you want to spend your money. For me, I think one of these apps that's more affordable is totally good. It's totally sufficient. And if you're a Stacking Benjamins listener, you're probably in tune with your money more than the average person. So you're probably best suited to go with an online option.
Well, and what's wild about these online options, Eric, you guys point out, they get better every year, but there's a portion of our audience that is listening going, okay, just tell me which one's best. Like, I don't want the preview. But best, you guys know more than it. Best is in the eyes of the beholder. This is a little bit more of a fine fabric than just one size fits all.
Yeah. So I'd say the best is best for your style and what you need. If for you best means easiest, it might be worth paying a little bit more for something that's a little easier. If you are, for college investors, if you're a younger person and you would rather save the money and you don't mind spending a few more minutes, the best option might be a cheaper one that's not quite as slick. And that's how we actually broke down our top options this year. For the first year in as long as I've been doing this with the College Investor, really anywhere, we knocked down the 800-pound gorilla in the industry from the top spot because of that cost. But we also said it's a good choice if you just want the easiest and kind of the best experience and don't mind paying more for it.
All the years you and I and Robert and I have been doing this, TurboTax has been the number one, the granddaddy, but also the best, even though last year Robert had a bunch of consternation and problems with TurboTax that have continued. He also said that you guys at the College Investor, really, it was a knockdown drag out about which one was the best. TurboTax still on top just overall this year. Is that the number one choice?
Yeah, so last year I went to bat for TurboTax still. I said I think it's the best because if you want the easiest and the slickest experience, TurboTax offers that. It has the automatic imports from most banks and investment companies. And if you're like me and you have several investment accounts and a handful of trades here and there, you don't want to type any of that in. So TurboTax does make that the easiest. But to Robert's point, this year I actually gave in to his consternation and we took them out of the number one spot because they're not as clear and upfront on pricing. And that's something we value. That's something at College Investor and anyone I work with. When you go into an experience, you want to know what you're going to pay upfront. And we're stuck with like the phone companies that you sign up and they say it's going to be $49.99 a month, but then there's like $800 in fees on the end.
Right.
With tax software, it shouldn't be that way. Well, with any product, really, it shouldn't be that way. But with tax software, when you sign up, you might click a link that says start here for free. And then you get through all the buttons. And at the end, it's like you owe $189. We don't like that kind of surprise.
Well, yeah. So this is TurboTax still hasn't gotten rid of that. Then they still you go in, you input all your stuff. You've no idea what the end result is. It's only, Eric, when you push the button at the end that you find out how much you're going to have to pay for this. And now you've already invested a bunch of time and energy. I mean, you kind of feel like a prisoner.
Right. So that's why we have a new best overall. Our winner this year was it kind of surprised me when I started thinking through and saying, do I really want to pick someone that's not TurboTax? Then who is that going to be? For a long time, the runner-up, I'd say, was H&R Block. And I think they're probably the second easiest if ease of use is your goal. But based on price and quality, if you want to balance out and find the best overall value, we picked Free Tax USA. So a lot of you might not be as familiar with them. They're one of the big ones. The only thing that I really don't like is that they have free in the name because it's not really free. They're going to charge you something, but it's a heck of a lot less than TurboTax for the average person. The only person who will be able to truly use Free Tax USA for free is someone who doesn't have a state return. And, they fit into the kind of free federal file bucket they have.
That'll be me in Texas.
Right. Yeah. So lucky you, no state income tax down there, but they get you somehow. They're property taxes and sales taxes, right? They get us all somehow.
Yeah, but you guys wrote you can upgrade to get technical support with the app for $8, $7.99, and support from a tax professional at $40, $39.99.
Yeah, and if you do that through something like TurboTax or H&R Block or TaxAct, there are three of the big incumbents in the industry, you're going to pay a lot more typically to get individual support. And even if you don't need that support, if you're just comparing apples to apples, let's say you have kind of typical taxes of someone who has maybe a bank account interest and an investment account and a kid or two, maybe a house, what you'll pay with Free Tax USA is just so much less. And unless you are an ultra active trader who has lots and lots and lots of line items to type in, which most of us are not. Most of us shouldn't be. But unless you have a ton of tax forms and a ton of trades, the time difference isn't going to be that significant. And with any tax software, your result should be the same at the end. When they're using the same math, the same calculations, they all have a maximum refund guarantee because they give you the refund you're supposed to have. That is the maximum refund. If you have an accurate refund, that is your maximum refund.
That is the maximum.
So it doesn't matter which one you use. It's how much time you're going to have to put in, how much effort you're going to have to put in, and what it costs. And for my 2 cents, I'd rather pay a lot less. So that's why we picked Free Tax USA this year. And there's actually, the company owns multiple brands. I think TaxHawk is one of them. I forgot what the other is. They actually use the exact same software and pricing on all of their brands. But Free Tax USA feels easier to remember. And it's a good choice. If you have relatively straightforward taxes and you want to do it the cheapest way possible while still paying for a more premium service, that's our top pick.
Yeah, you write that it doesn't include the option to import tax data from banks and brokerage firms. You must manually type in to tax form details. It's still easy to use, very good for the cost. It sounds like when it comes to TurboTax, the number 2 pick, Eric, that really is the difference, is that all that stuff can be imported. So back to what you said originally, TurboTax second because of the slickness of what you get, I'm assuming.
Yeah, there's so many upsells throughout. And I actually sat down with a family member who had always taken her taxes to an accountant and said, I want to do them myself. I want to use TurboTax because it's the big one. I said, great. And at the end, when the bill popped up, it's like, I didn't think I would have to pay this. I didn't think I checked this. There's just so many upsells and easy ways to say, oh, I'll pay extra for support that you might not actually need. Or she didn't realize she was clicking to upgrade for paid support, but she did. No. So then when it came time to pay, they're like, you ordered paid support, and she never used it. So if she got tricked, and she's not a dumb person, it's easy to make that mistake. So that's really the big drawback, is pricing transparency, and it just costs more. But again, to what we were talking about at the beginning, if you just want the fastest, easiest, with the slickest online experience, everything, it looks nice on the page. The help sections are really easy to navigate. TurboTax does do that probably still better than anyone, but is it worth paying such a premium for and dealing with questions and ambiguity on cost? We didn't think so this year. It still works for a lot of people, but
up to the user, right? Why is H&R Block your second runner-up?
Yeah, so H&R Block has just about all of the same bells and whistles as you get from TurboTax. It's typically a tidbit cheaper, not significant. They don't have quite the same level of import integrations, but for the places you can't import, you can usually drag and drop a PDF that you get from let's say your investment company. You can just download the PDF, drop it into the H&R Block website, and cool. It will read it for you and parse all the information and fill the form, which most of them don't. I think if anyone from the tax companies are listening and you want a differentiator the next time I do this,
that's a great one.
You should do that. Like, AI can read your PDFs now. There's no reason a software company shouldn't be able to implement that. But surprisingly, the ones that really do it are TurboTax and H&R Block, and the others, it's a pretty big step down in what you'll get from that. Another reason I like H&R Block for some people is if you are kind of uncertain about if you will need help, if you're that person that's on the edge of, do I go with a in-person accountant or do I do it myself? H&R Block has locations all over the country, and they make it really easy to convert. So let's say you're halfway through your taxes and you're just like, oh, I'm done. Throw your hands up. I just can't deal with the rest. You can convert to an in-person experience and drive over to the office and just pick up where you left off. And with most of the others, like TurboTax and actually TaxAct just launched one of these this year, you can pay extra to have help from a CPA or a tax professional, licensed tax professional. Not always a CPA, but they're always licensed.
Sure, like an enrolled agent.
Yeah, exactly. An enrolled agent or a CPA. It's usually one of the two. You can upgrade with TurboTax. You can upgrade to, I forgot the exact term, what they call it. Basically, hand off your entire tax return. So you just upload all your files, drop them in an online folder, and they will parse out all the details for you. But for each level of service, you'll pay more, remember. But yeah, H&R Block, I like for that. If you're let's say you're just the person who's on the edge of if you want to do it yourself or pay someone, TurboTax is really, I think, the best starting place for that audience.
Now, what was funny to me when I was reading your piece, Eric, is that, so then I scroll down and I start looking at the individual categories that you have, because while those are your overarching, hey, any person you are, those are good choices. But if you're this particular person, use these. I was surprised that in your very first category, best free tax filing software, I would think that Free Tax USA that won the overall would win that. But you're like, no, if you're somebody that qualifies for free filing, it's a different winner. First of all, how do you know if you qualify to file for free? And then second, if it's not Free Tax USA, which app should those people use?
Sure. So just about every tax software has a free tier. That's not universal, but it's the majority. And the free tier is usually pretty limited. It's based on your annual income and which tax forms you have. One of the most generous free tiers among premium tax software is probably H&R Block. There's also an IRS free file program you can go to. Most of the tax software providers participate, but it's important to note if you start through the IRS free file portal, you can't convert to a paid app. So if you are on the fence, don't start that way, because then you're going to have to retype all your information later and it's a big hassle. So I'd start by looking at if free is your priority. I'd actually skip most of the paid programs because there are a couple that are truly, actually 100% free. And the one that we picked here as our winner for this year is Cash App Taxes. Now, Cash App, you guys probably know from Cash App, you can use to send people money. It's like Venmo or PayPal. It's owned by Square, or Block Inc. is their company name. They're the payment processor, the little squares that you use to pay for food trucks and stuff like that, coffee shops. So they own that. They actually got it from Credit Karma when Credit Karma sold to Intuit, that owns TurboTax. There was part of the deal was that spun off and Square bought it. So Cash App Taxes, 100% free. There is no way to pay for anything. They just don't have it built in. It's free no matter what. But with that, you don't really get much support beyond their help section. So if you can't figure it out through Googling and reading their help section, that's not the best choice. And there are a handful of situations, it's pretty limited, that they don't support. The most noteworthy is if you have to file in multiple states. So if you live in Kansas City, Kansas, and work in Kansas City, Missouri, and you need to do 2 state returns because of that, that might be an example. Or if you move sometime in the year, if you decide that you can't handle this beautiful California weather and you need to go move to Minnesota in the middle of the year, and you have 2 state returns to file, that you wouldn't qualify. And that's for any 2 state situation. So if you are average, though, if you've lived in the same state all year and have pretty typical taxes, you can use it and it doesn't cost anything. A new one to me this year that is also totally free is Chime Taxes. Chime is the bank account provider.
Yeah, right.
Like fee-free checking and savings, and the credit card that has no interest or fees, pretty much. There's always asterisks, pretty much. But basically, typical user is not going to pay any fees from Chime. They're awesome in that way. They have a free tax filing app. I mean, you have to be a Chime customer to get access, and it's all through their mobile app. So if you like Chime, or if you're interested, that's another route to get totally free tax filing.
Well, I know that historically, like IRS Free File and Get Your Refund, these have income limits. My understanding is Cash App was one of the first ones that had no income limit. I mean, seriously, when you said everybody can use it, it's kind of one of a kind. You're not going to go to these other places and be able to file for free.
Right. Yeah, they were the first one. Back then it was called Credit Karma Tax, now Cash App Taxes. It was the first one that I know of that just said, do your taxes for free online, which is pretty sweet. Who doesn't like having more money?
Well, here's one that our mutual friend, Robert Farrington, I remember really had a lot of appreciation for. And that was student loan borrowers. The name of your site is collegeinvestor.com. So number one, a lot of student loan borrowers. But actually what I was referring to is this winner. He really likes TaxSlayer in a lot of ways, Eric.
Yeah. So TaxSlayer is a standout for a handful of reasons. They, for me, for a lot of years, were kind of the big number 4. So the big 3 were always TurboTax, H&R Block, and TaxAct. And TaxSlayer, I started to notice maybe a decade ago. And I think the first place that it really caught my eye was on Reddit. I'm a Reddit guy. I won't tell you my username because that's what Reddit's all about, right?
Right.
And I was cruising the personal finance and tax subreddits because that's what all the cool kids do. And so people were talking about how they do their taxes. And I kept seeing people say they actually really like TaxSlayer. It's a lot cheaper than the bigger competitors, and it works just as well. So the price, as it's gotten more popular over the years, has crept up a bit, but it's still cheaper than something like TurboTax. I'd say it works just as well as something like TaxAct. So it's quality wise worth being in the top, 3, 4, or 5 options. But the pricing is a little better. So that's a reason we have been a fan there. And they keep making it better. They keep improving it. They do have some of the PDF imports, like we talked about, you can get from H&R Block. It's not quite as robust as what you get from H&R Block, but it's better than most of the others. So it's definitely one we can get behind and say, if it looks like it would fit your needs, it's worth checking out.
If I am an investor and I've got maybe lots of different stock positions, what's my best choice for filing?
Yeah, so if you have a lot of trades, I'd say there's a different answer if you have a lot of investments versus if you have a lot of transactions. So if you have a lot of investments in general, but you're not buying and selling a lot, any of them really could do the job pretty well. But if you have a lot of transactions, so you're an active trader, TurboTax is still the easiest. As I mentioned earlier, you can type in let's say you use Schwab, Fidelity, Chase, any of the big brokerages, you type in your information and your login information, it will automatically download all of your transactions.
It's that import feature that wins the day.
It's just, if you're an active trader and you have 1,000 trades over the year, with just about everyone else other than probably H&R Block, you're going to be sitting there typing in 1,000 transactions. And if you are the kind of person who's trading that much, spending 2-3 days typing in line by line every trade is probably a deal breaker. For that crowd, it's probably worth paying $100 more, $150 more to just click and import.
Do they win for crypto as well?
Yeah, so with crypto, it gets a little more complicated, a little more nuanced. So if you only use something like Coinbase will give you a tax report you can use that you can import it right into TurboTax or H&R Block or most of the others. But if you are a crypto nerd like me and you have your own hardware wallets or software wallets or use multiple exchanges, you usually can't just import all of that into something like TurboTax. You'll need an intermediary crypto tax software. There's 2 that I really like. One is called Coinly, Koinly, and one is called Coin Tracker. So with those, you link your hardware wallet address, your software wallet, whatever wallets you're using, whatever exchanges. They connect to almost every exchange, hundreds of them with APIs if they're available. So you might need to be a little bit more techie, but you're probably not doing crypto through all these exchanges if you're not already a little more techie. So if you're that person, you have a lot of crypto stuff going on, you're probably going to need to pay additionally for something like Coin Tracker or Coinly, and they will create the forms that you can then import into TurboTax or another app.
Boy, I know what a beast that can be, and to have some software and programs that can clean that up for me could be a lifesaver. Let's say that I'm in real estate and I'm a buy and hold real estate landlord. Which one of these programs do I turn to first?
Yeah, so we picked TaxSlayer for landlords because the pricing's reasonable. We were already talking about reasons we like TaxSlayer, and it's pretty well optimized for landlords. And once you get past, let's assume you're doing business accounting for your landlord business. Maybe you use something like QuickBooks or Xero or whatever you use. There's lots of specific apps just for landlords. At the end of the year, you should have a pretty good idea of what you made, your P&L. That should all be together. If you come into doing your taxes with that information handy, then TaxSlayer is a great place to pick up and get your stuff all entered and get an accurate tax return.
And what's amazing to me and felt a little random as I was reading through these is that, up until now, besides free, we haven't mentioned Cash App taxes. But here, Cash App taxes is, again, Eric, just because, and I think it's specifically because they have this cool depreciation calculator that they use. Am I right there?
For landlords, depreciation is going to be really important. We picked Cash App taxes for side hustlers as a favorite. And the reason we did that is when you're a side hustler, you might have multiple business entities or multiple Schedule Cs if you want to get into the nitty gritty. Me, I'm a business nerd, so I have an S corporation, and all of my side hustles kind of funnel through that S corporation. But the typical side hustler, maybe you're an Uber driver or a DoorDasher, or you sell some trinkets at a local farmer's market or artworks on Etsy. There can be lots of different places you do this. And as your side hustles get more numerous or complicated, you'll start to pay a lot more with the TurboTaxes and H&R Blocks, where Cash App taxes, chances are if you're a serial side hustler, you're the kind of person who's trying to make more money and spend less money. So that's part of why I think that's a standout there. It's the cost again. If you're side hustling trying to pay off credit card debt, or side hustling trying to save up a down payment, you don't want to spend an extra $120 on your taxes when you could do it for free, even if it takes a few more minutes.
Well, I guess that was my point, is that you've got Cash App as the runner up for landlords. And then to your point, for side hustlers, you've got Cash App as number one. And it's kind of like you flipped, because then you've got TaxSlayer as the runner up. So it sounds like if you're somebody that has the side hustle of real estate or any other side hustle, those are your two go-tos. Like those are TaxSlayer and Cash App.
Unless you like one of our top overall picks more.
Now, let's say then, Eric, that I want to work with a human, but I want to do it directly through the computer. You guys looked at that category.
Yeah. So for virtual tax prep, that's what we called it. We picked H&R Block. Where that kind of came from was during COVID. People weren't going into H&R Block locations because COVID. So when we were all stuck at home, they were pretty innovative. They were basically like the Zoom of tax prep at the time. They were because they had that infrastructure and so many people around the country, they were able to just turn on their computers and say, all right, we'll sit down with you. You can be at your desk at home. I'll be at my desk in the office. We don't have to worry about coughing and breathing on each other, and we can do our taxes together, or do your taxes. So that's why we picked them. They were really a leader in getting in-person tax help during COVID, and they didn't drop the ball there. They just kept that level of support available going forward. Just like you could switch and pull the lever and go into an H&R Block, you can pay for a modest upgrade and work with someone and have a video meeting, just like you're watching us here on YouTube.
Right. Well, and that's, for people that need that extra, I don't know, layer of confidence, that not only do I have the app, but I have this person who can assure me that I'm doing it right. I think for somebody there, that could be a huge, huge, huge service. Yeah. Every year, these are our most popular show notes stackers. So head to stackingbenjamins.com and you'll find the show notes for today's episode. But if you want to go directly there, I think you guys, I would imagine, Eric, there's no way you don't have your piece here pinned to the front page, probably for the next month and a half.
Yeah, if you Google or whatever search engine you like, if you DuckDuckGo it, is that a verb now? If you DuckDuckGo it, you can type in the college investor best tax software and it'll come up towards the top.
Eric, man, thanks for helping our stackers navigate tax day again. I super appreciate you and the whole team over there at the College Investor.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on the show. And if you want to connect with me directly, go to eric.money in your browser. No .com, just eric.money, and I'd love to connect with you.
And we'll have Eric's go-to link on our show notes as well, everybody.
Bye-bye.